Hi, I'm Ben Osterhouse. I'm a cellist and composer, and in this video I'm going to be introducing a new sample library. Basically, how this library works is it's a ton of these short two-note phrases, and they're represented by these bits of graphic notation, which I call paths. You can arrange these paths into a grid in order to create melodies, ostinatos, and plenty of other interesting things. Because all of the two-note phrases were recorded at every interval, you can play chords and all the paths in the pattern will adapt. With the Pathfinder Cello, you can go really deep in customizing things, but there are also plenty of presets. So to use this library, you don't have to get too involved. You can just click through the presets and try them out. Some of these presets are pretty dense, like there's a lot going on in here. To start, I'm going to go to a blank preset, and this way we can look at things one at a time. To get to edit mode, I click here. Before I put anything in the grid even, I want to show what these tabs on the side mean. If I play a one-note chord, you can see it just jumped down to this tab that has a single note in it. If I play a two-note chord, jumps up to there. If I play a three-note chord, etc. And you could play as many as 8 notes in a chord, and it would go up to this tab. Each of these tabs can have a completely different set of paths in them. I'll come back to that. But anyways, let's say we go back to the two-note chord tab. I'm going to drag a path into here. And now I can go like this. So that one path is working for whatever interval I play, whatever two-note chord I play. Next, let's see what happens if I play a three-note chord. Oh, now, so what happened to the path, right? Well, remember that each of the tabs has a completely different set of paths in it. So we have to set up the behavior for three-note chords. So I'm going to go like this. Oops. Now we can go. Now we can go like that. All of the presets, of course, have everything set up for every single tab. So all that work's been done already. So let's take a look at the different types of paths down here. These two are similar in that they have a lot of portamento in them, as indicated by the slanty line. These two chords don't have any portamento in them, and this is important because if everything had portamento, things would turn into a slurpy mess, but if you have the ability to have clean note changes as well, it's really helpful. These two over here are triplets. The triplet is happening in a different part of the phrase, and so each of them has a kind of unique feel to it. Lastly, here are the sustains. For each of the paths, there are a number of parameters, so let's take a look at those. First off, we've got speed. The speed option toggles paths between two lengths. The longer length features a more lugubrious style of playing, while the shorter length is more clean, with less emphasis placed on the note change. The next parameter is double, and it beefs up the sound by layering together two recordings of the same thing. I struggled to come up with a name for the next parameter, but I settled on movement. If you click on the plus or minus, you can change how a path moves between the notes of whichever chord you're playing. The volume parameter is useful because it allows you to take something that's rather busy and emphasize just the important parts. In this example, the important part is that moving line in the middle. So I'm going to bring down the volume of the surrounding paths. And now it's easier to hear that moving line. The pan slider is useful for making chords extra wide. In this example, I'm going to use it to bring out that middle line again. Alright, that covers the basics of what you can do with the path parameters panel. The fade and trim panel gives you a little bit of control over the envelope of individual paths, but its primary usefulness is in allowing you to cleanly stitch together different parts of paths. So let me show an example of that. In this preset, the ends of all of the paths have been trimmed off, so it sounds like this. If those ends hadn't been trimmed off, it would sound like this. So it's a bit messier. The arpeggio preset is another example of what you can do with fading and trimming. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and it's hard to pick out what's what. So let's go to a blank preset, and I'll remake something similar to this. So we'll start out with a triplet, and I'm going to crop off the end of it, and then I'm going to put another triplet in, and crop off the beginning of it, and point it, change its movement so that it goes like so. And now you can see how it fits together. It's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, really. We need to make sure that it fades, otherwise there will be clicks. Okay, yeah, there's a little bit of a fade on each one. Now it'll sound like so. Yeah, pretty cool. I mean, it almost sounds like one sample, which is pretty cool. Not quite, but very close. So next, I'm just gonna hold Control and drag to duplicate those, and there's some other variations you can do here. So you could use this triplet, and if you were to stitch these together, you would chop off the end of this like so, and then use the beginning of this like so, and then Yeah, so they're phrased very differently when they're stitched together using different samples. So it's pretty cool. You can see this way of stitching together samples is kind of labor intensive. It's pretty futzy, and if you don't get it right, things sound kind of patchy. So that's why we have all the presets here. So I've done all the work already. This system of tabs on the side offers a ton of control, but at the same time, it is a bit complicated. So there's a separate way to utilize the presets. If you click this lock, then all of the little icons go away. All of the tabs are blank. And on the current tab, it just shows a lock here. And this means that no matter what size chord you play, it will stay on that tab. You can click to get to the other tabs still, but now if you play 2 notes, it only plays the 2 bottom lanes of this tab. And you could add more notes. Now the question is, when you go to the second tab here and there's only paths at the bottom, what happens if you play a giant chord? Well, listen to this. So what's happening there is the script is basically just repeating the paths, repeating the pattern, I should say, for all the additional notes that you played. There's a lot more that I could talk about with the Pathfinder Cello. It's a really deep library, but I think that covers the basics. So I hope you enjoyed watching this, and I'll see you later.